Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, tighter restrictions for those seeking to enter the Bahamas come next week. Bahamasair are experiencing a rough time during the pandemic. Plus, hairstylists and barbers pleading with the competent authority to let them work.
Our news is brought to you by Alumni.
Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. As of September 1st, travelers seeking to enter the Bahamas must have proof of negative COVID-19 test results no older than 5 days. Tourism Minister Dorian says the tightening up of regulations is designed to prevent a third wave of COVID-19 cases in the fall.
And everybody has to do their part, and especially when you return home, you have got to quarantine. Do not come out of your home for 14 days. Don't go visit Grammy. Don't go to no party. Don't go to the food store, because that leads to community spread.
When the country reopened on July 1st, there were just over 100 cases. Fast forward weeks later, and the second wave saw 1,700 additional cases. In July, locals could travel abroad for 72 hours and return without taking a COVID-19 test. Government officials have acknowledged that contributed to the spike in cases. Well, as of Tuesday, to enter the country, your COVID-19 test must be no older than 5 days.
In order to tighten our regulations, we're going to reduce that period to 5 days. So from the day that you give the specimen to the day that you present at the border is going to be 5 days. So we figure that obviously if we reduce it to 5 days, the validity of that test improves with that reduction in the time period from when you give the specimen to you present to the border.
Currently, citizens, legal residents, and visitors must obtain a health visa from the government to enter the country, and a 14-day quarantine is mandatory for all. As a condition of entry into the Bahamas, individuals must also submit to be monitored by police on the Hubcat platform and perhaps have unscheduled visits by police. If they refuse, they will be placed in mandatory quarantine at a government facility at their own expense.
The process is that you go away and you come back, and you have to download the app on your phone, and the police are now in charge of keeping track of whether you remain within the quarantine confines that you have described. You can only quarantine in a place where you are in a room that only you will use, and you will have a bathroom that only you will use. And you have to figure out how you're going to get your food during that 14-day period.
Diagler says all of these new steps are intended to close any loopholes that allowed COVID-positive individuals to enter the country and contribute to community spread. But when it comes to domestic travel, individuals must obtain a negative test result and upon arrival on the other island, submit to mandatory quarantine at a government facility.
That test also will be only good for 5 days, but that's fairly straightforward because there are local providers of tests right now who do it very quickly.
Well, the Bahamas is about to hit another grim milestone, 2,000 coronavirus cases. The Ministry of Health revealed this morning there are 110 additional cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of confirmed cases to 1,923. New Providence has 97 new cases, Grand Bahama has 12 new cases, and Abaco has 1. The ministry also confirmed 1 additional non-COVID related death. There are 79 hospitalizations, 733 recovered cases, and 1,135 active cases. New Providence remains the island with the highest number, with 1,136 confirmed cases of COVID-19. That's more than twice as many cases as Grand Bahama, which has 537 confirmed cases. There are 68 COVID-19 cases with locations pending. The Bahamas has the third highest number of COVID-19 cases, active cases, and deaths among CARICOM countries. Haiti topped the list with 8,122 cases, followed by Suriname with 3,698. Well, nearly a month after being forced to ground domestic and international commercial flights, Bahamasair continues to face a difficult financial situation that has left the airline wholly dependent on government funding, according to Chairman Tommy Turnquest, who says they are currently in talks with the government to ensure workers' salaries are paid on Friday. Jasmine Brown has more.
Turnquest was candid in his comments as he detailed the current situation at Bahamasair. He said the last month has been a very difficult one for the airline as it continues to rely on injections from the government to meet its financial needs.
It's been very rough. There's been no operations since the 28th or 29th of July.
With no commercial flights coming or going, he says income has also been non-existent since late July. Bahamasair's predicament has not gone unnoticed by Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, who revealed during the budget debate that the government was considering cutting the salaries of Bahamasair staff as the airline struggles during the COVID-19 pandemic. Asked about the matter on Monday, Dr. Minnis said no decisions have been made yet. Turnquest said Bahamasair is currently awaiting funding from the government to pay salaries on Friday.
We have paid salaries to date. A salary is due again on Friday. We're in discussions with the government to fund that. Once that's funded, we'll pass it on. But we make absolutely no money from lack of operations, and we have no reserves, unfortunately.
He added that the airline is anxiously awaiting the government's announcement about the resumption of domestic and international travel. Asked how long he believes the company can continue in this manner, Turnquest said this.
It could operate as long as the government wants us to operate, but the government has to support it.
While domestic and international travel briefly resumed in June and July, a second wave of infections again resulted in the shutdown of the local travel industry, with Minnis again banning domestic travel at the end of July. Turnquest said the time has been used for training for Bahamasair employees. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Bus drivers are up in arms after they were excluded from the list of many businesses that would be allowed to operate as of Monday. They're calling on the Prime Minister to reconsider. Bethany McDermott reports.
The Prime Minister is just asking for your help right now to send us back to work. If taxis could be on the road, public service is public service.
Bus drivers are calling on the competent authority to give them permission to operate for their sake and that of Bahamians who rely on them to get around. Drivers gathered on Armbailey Park to express their dissatisfaction with the latest order issued on Wednesday. Bahamas Unified Bus Drivers Union Secretary General Carvel Colbert questioned why taxis are allowed to operate but not jitneys.
We don't really understand that ourselves, because if you look at it, taxi drivers do not cater to the public. Taxi drivers cater to tourists. There's no tourists in town. The price to catch a taxi, mom who going to the food store or mom who got to go to work, dad who got to go to the clinic, cannot pay that $10 or $20 a time, going to where they have to go and then got to go pay that back. That isn't feasible.
During the very short period that bus drivers were allowed to transport passengers in July, Colbert said they followed protocols put in place including social distancing, proper signage, and hand sanitizers. He says they feel disrespected.
We were feeling disrespected at 7 a.m. on July the 28th. The Prime Minister has not yet apologized for that. We are still feeling disrespected.
Sean Lewis, a bus driver of 12 years, said the many months of unemployment are taking a toll on him.
I haven't paid a bill in a long time. Banks are now calling me, ask me when I'm going to start putting down payments. I tell them, Mom and tell, I can make some money. That's when I can start paying. For right now, I can't even worry with banks because I can't even pay my natural light bill and cable bill and stuff like that. I just got an email from BPL. I don't even want to call up the amount what I owe them right now.
He's not alone. Others say they're struggling to purchase basic necessities, including groceries.
Right now I have 4 kids and it's really hard to support my family. Right now, bills are piling up. Light, water, cable, phone, everything's just piling up. It's right now hard to buy food because we don't have any funds. As bus drivers in the public service system right now, we don't have any funds to help us out.
It leaves me in a state that I cannot provide for my family. It's really difficult. Even with the NIB payout, it's still, it barely grasps my bills, so it is rough.
Now, Colbert says the union is giving the Prime Minister until Monday to rethink that decision. We asked him what the next step will be if that deadline isn't met. In that instance, Colbert said they'll cross that bridge when they get there. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
All right, thanks, Bethany. Well, as one of the few businesses not allowed to reopen next week, hairstylists and barbers are at their wits' end. Many of them say they are between a rock and a hard place. Jillian Gray has more.
With government assistance winding down, this single mother pleaded for salons to be permitted to reopen. The entrepreneur became emotional as she said small businesses like salons add to the flow of revenue in the country.
We are literally just barely getting by. We are barely getting by. And so I would like to make a plea to the government to please consider us.
Beauticians and barbers are advocating for their salons to be open. As they say, they're one of the only industries that went through certification to ensure that customers are safe during the COVID-19 pandemic.
I'm closer to people in the food store than I am in the salons, because in my salon I have on protective gear or PPE. In the food store I don't. All I have on is a mask. But people all up under you. So
I think we should be open, seeing that we already did our certification with the government, and some of us even did the international Barbers certification. Seeing that we are all certified to even be open, not being allowed to be open is, I wouldn't say frustrating, but it confuses us.
Derek Young is the lead barber at ProCut's Barbershop. The store held its grand opening when barbers were allowed to reopen on June 15th. However, the business was only open for a few weeks before being shut down.
Only being open for a few weeks, it really affected me. It affected not only me, but the small businesses that come into my shop and advertise.
Young said barbers and beauticians spent hundreds on their products and tools, and being closed is killing their business. Skyline Design's owner Dominique Petty-Home said her family has had to cut back in order to survive, adding that the government is putting business owners between a rock and a hard place.
We had to really cut back on everything, and if it wasn't for churches or persons who were donating to us groceries and stuff, I don't know what we would have done, because I went on the website for Rapid Bahamas, but nobody contacted me. I didn't get an email or anything, so I don't understand what's happening or how they expect persons to continue to maintain themselves or just feed their family.
Customers are still trying to get appointments, leaving these business owners to decide whether to make money or obey the law.
I told some guys that I was waiting on the government. They say, "You's a fool." So I said, oh my God, like, people are ridiculing you for trying to obey what the government is saying, because they say you must have got a bunch of money, what you sitting on, you know.
I believe in following the law, so I'm trying not to do any house calls. I'm trying not to open up the shop illegally. But it's hard. It's hard not making any money, any income from it.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. More news on the way, but here's a first look at weather with meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good night, Greg.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Downey. Currently outside our studios, we have just a few clouds. Your winds out of the southeast at 7 knots with a temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Feels like temperature around 91 Fahrenheit. Currently on our satellite, partly sunny skies and breezy conditions continued across the islands today, as high pressure settled across the area with just a few isolated showers and afternoon thunderstorms over a few of the larger islands. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still here.
Still to come, a party promoter responds to criticism over his upcoming event. Plus, the one-year anniversary of Hurricane Dorian's destruction approaches. Stay tuned. A party promoter is responding to critics who say now isn't the time to plan large gatherings. Jared Ace has more.
When flyers for Summer Sunset 2 started circulating on social media, many Bahamians criticized the party promoter. That promoter is 33-year-old Theodore Roberts. He's been in the business for 10 years. His brand, Versace Boys, is behind the party that he describes as an exclusive party for limited guests. He says despite pandemic lockdowns, the industry has been doing well.
This business it still is booming, even though it's more so like it was almost like an underground thing to do.
When word of relaxed restrictions began to spread, it wasn't long before flyers of Roberts' party started popping up on news feeds. Some critics complained that now isn't the time to have gatherings, and recent emergency orders have forbidden social gatherings with few exceptions. Roberts says his last party was in February, but with relaxed restrictions, he sees an opportunity. His next party is planned for September 26th.
We went through the necessary channels and we implement the necessary protocols and procedures that they want us to put in place. We got a decontamination machine, we got a sanitizer for your keys and your phones, we got sanitary stations in every area.
The party will be held at the Viking Hill Beach Mansion on West Bay Street. Of course, Roberts has seen the criticism of his party and says he isn't moved by it.
The party's not for everybody. And at the end of the day, you cannot force anybody to come and attend a party. So you actually party at your own leisure or whatever the case may be. It's up to the person themselves to choose if they would choose to come or attend or not.
Concerns over a lack of social distancing in large crowds have persisted since the start of the pandemic. Officials have previously criticized some venues for not controlling large crowds that end up at their establishments. Roberts insists, though, that he isn't expecting a large crowd, and his party won't exceed the allotted 30 guests.
When it comes to abiding by rules and regulations, we tend to take that very, very seriously, because at the end of the day, we have a name, we have a brand, we have a reputation to uphold. When we stop at 30, we stop at 30. Regardless if you even come late or if you came before or whatever the case may be, you will not be let in. Simple as that.
But even a crowd of 30 can result in the virus spreading. The party promoter says he'll have a guest list in the event that contact tracing needs to take place. We asked him if he was concerned that somebody could contract the virus at his party.
Persons are very much concerned about that, and me myself, I am concerned about that too as well. But at the end of the day, that's why we put these certain necessary precautions in place in order to try to prevent. Because you only could try to prevent things.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Next week will mark 1 year since Hurricane Dorian left its destructive impact on Abaco and Grand Bahama. While some say more could have been done to assist those islands during the recovery process, North Abaco MP Darren Henfield insists there has been progress. However, he acknowledged there is still a lot more work to do.
We have done quite a bit. Government, private sector, NGOs, as well as the Bahamian people themselves, our people themselves. But we still have quite a long ways to go.
The Category 5 storm devastated parts of Abaco and Grand Bahama in September, leaving more than 70 people dead and nearly 300 missing. An Inter-American Development Bank report estimates the total cost of the impact of Hurricane Dorian on the Bahamas was $3.4 billion. Hanfield, who rode out the storm on that island, says it's hard to forget its devastating impact, but Abaconians have remained resilient.
We approached the anniversary with mixed emotions. We remember the tragic events of that day, which resulted in, of course, the loss of life and the loss of tremendous property. Since then, I believe that we have made tremendous progress. I continue to see the resilient and indomitable spirit of the Abaco people, of Abaconians.
The Bahamian Contractors Association is looking for a bit more clarity on what projects are receiving fast-tracked approvals by the government as a result of the pandemic. On Monday, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced that government would fast-track projects that are currently awaiting approval. Well, BCA President Michael Pratt called for transparency in this process.
I guess assume it's the normal type of projects that we see on a regular basis. You know, we have the foreign direct investors. We have individuals in the country who are trying to do their own projects as well. We hope that this covers, you know, we hope from a construction, from an economic point of view, that the majority of these are done where we could contain and control the construction.
Pratt says the local construction industry has been blessed where contractors have been able to resume work quickly, employing many who were left out of work. However, he says funding remains an issue. The BCA president says the association has written the authority, offering its assistance in the rushed approval process.
Contractors, we build. We are there, we build. We make sure that we build to the quality and the standards as the guidelines set by the authority, the Ministry of Works, etc. You know, whoever oversees that, all right, in their competence, we must call on them, all right, to be accountable, And the private sector can also, the engineers can step in, the architects can step in as another jurisdiction and be a part of that process.
When our news comes back from the break, the F&M pays tribute to former chairman John Lee Ferguson. Plus, dozens wait in line for food assistance. Stay tuned. There was singing and laughing at Free National Movement headquarters today as family members and friends of former Senator John Lee Ferguson held a memorial service in his honor. Due to social distancing protocols, a limited number of persons were allowed on the inside. National Insurance Minister Brenzel Roll described Ferguson as a devoted educator and fighter. Ferguson died earlier this month at age 69. He will be laid to rest tomorrow. Well, brown paper bags filled with essentials lined the inside of Church of God of Prophecy on Meadow Street on Wednesday as dozens of people waited on the outside for assistance. Our News met Maxine Farrington, who said she's been out of work for over 5 months, which left her home with just one provider. She says she doesn't want to seem ungrateful, but the amount of groceries isn't enough to feed her family.
I have one provider in my home, that's my husband. You got the utility bills, the rent, these things. I wouldn't have been here on this line, waiting on this little bit of grocery, but I seen this bag, but the government say they're giving people. This guy don't feel a whole soul. Number one, they should have had things in the bags, or either a voucher in the bag, where women can go, because you have women, them seeing monthly, seeing they period, come on.
However, Peter Tracy was grateful for the much needed assistance.
The government is supposed to take on all the strain, man. Come on. So to say it was designed for the elderly and the handicapped, not these strong people. Because when you don't take it, these strong people, they can curse you.
Pastor of Church of God of Prophecy on Meadow Street, Sterling Moss, said despite their challenges, the program has assisted over 800 persons each week.
We have helped close to 200, and it's just like little after 10. But we have sufficient there to cater to everyone who comes today. And that's the blessing of it. No one is going to be turned away. Everyone who comes will leave with a bag of grocery in their hand for their family. And so that's a blessing. That's where I get my joy.
Moss said that bags are designed to feed a family of 4 for a week. He added many residents in the area are not aware that they are required to sign up before showing up for food packages, which can present further challenges.
For the Baintown residents, you just can't come and get a bag. You have to register. And you must go online and register rapidbahamas.com. And when you register on rapidbahamas.com, they give you a code. 3 letters and 3 figures. You bring that along with your ID.
Still to come, SAC alumni helping students prepare for back to school. That's coming up when Our News returns. Finally tonight, news alumni of a local high school lending a helping hand as schools prepare to reopen. Marcellus Hall reports.
Well, as local schools get ready to open once again, there will be some adjustments, obviously due to COVID-19. As it stands, one local high school getting some assistance from former students. Alumni of St. Augustine's College graduating class of 1985 coming together to lend a helping hand to their former institution. The former students donating funds to help with the cost of social distance preparation as school sets to reopen.
On behalf of our class, to help with all the upcoming protocols that the schools have to now undertake because of COVID-19. And we just want to say on behalf of all the class of 1985 that we are glad to be here.
SAC Principal Sonia Knowles more than grateful for the assistance.
Contrary to popular belief, this new thing on online learning is costing the school much more than in the previous year. So thank you again, and we hope that other classes will follow your suit and assist us with trying to make sure that our students are safe.
Meanwhile, class rep Lillian Russell says they felt honored to be able to do their part.
I think most of us here in this group, some of us teach at St. Augustine's, so that's an indication, as well as other of us, our children would have also attended St. Augustine's. So that speaks to the tradition that we all have and we believe in with respect to the Big Red Machine. That's what we call SAC pride.
So we'll see again how those schools continue to adjust as the reopening gets closer and closer. Reporting for our news, I'm Marcellus Hall.
And that's a look at news. We throw it back to meteorologist Greg Thompson for the extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your second look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Infogroup. Hurricane Laura continues to weaken across the southeast United States, with high pressure across the Bahamas generating an east-southeasterly flow, with just a few isolated showers occurring across the islands. The tropics remain quiet at this time, and tropical cyclone formation is not expected through the next 5 days. Your boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas: southeasterly flow 10 to 15 knots, seas 3 to 5 feet over the ocean, while in the southeast Bahamas, winds will be east to southeast 15 knots, seas running 3 to 5 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now a look at your extended forecast through Tuesday. That's a look at your weather. Make it a great night, everyone.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. Remember, you can catch Our News on the go, the Revico Play app. Have a good Thursday evening, Bahamasair.